The best security systems don't just catch burglars. Mine caught my wife conspiring with her lover to frame me, steal my children, and empty every account I had. What she didn't know was that I was recording every single word. By the time I was done, her perfect plan had become her perfect nightmare. My name is Otis Wells. I'm 42 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all. I was a senior manager at Mountain Peak Telecommunications with two wonderful kids and what I believed to be a solid marriage to my wife, Belle. We lived in a pleasant neighborhood in Colorado Springs, the kind of place where kids still ride their bikes until dusk and neighbors actually know each other's names. I should have realized something was wrong. It started when Belle began taking those late night calls. She'd slip out into our backyard, her voice a low murmur, claiming she was just catching up with old college friends. When I'd ask about it later, she'd brush me off with that practiced smile of hers. Just girl talk, honey, Belle would say, waving her hand dismissively. Nothing you'd find interesting. The fighting started small, too. Stupid things, really. I'd leave my coffee mug in the sink instead of the dishwasher. And suddenly, we were in a shouting match that lasted an hour. Or I'd forget to pick up milk on the way home, and she'd act as if I'd committed some unforgivable sin. You never listened to me, Otis, she would snap, her green eyes flashing with a rage that seemed far out of proportion. I might as well be talking to a brick wall. Our son, 14-year-old Daniel, started spending more time in his room. Our 11-year-old daughter, Amelia, would look between us during these arguments with wide, worried eyes no child should have. I kept telling myself it was just stress, that all marriages go through rough patches. The real warning sign came when I installed our new home security system. It was top of the line equipment from work: cameras, motion sensors, and crystal clear audio recording. I was proud of that system. I'd spent weeks getting it perfect. Little did I know, it was about to save my life in more ways than one. It was a Tuesday night in March when everything changed. I was working late at the office, testing some new network configurations, when I decided to check the house feed on my phone. The audio quality was so good, you could hear a pin drop in any room. That's when I heard Belle's voice, clear as day, coming from the living room. He doesn't suspect a thing, she was saying, and there was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. Cold, calculating. Otis is too wrapped up in his work and his gadgets to notice what's right in front of him. My blood ran cold. What exactly was I supposed to be suspecting? I sat frozen in my office chair, phone pressed to my ear, listening as my wife dismantled our marriage with every word. Listen carefully, Belle said into the phone, her voice taking on the professional tone she used when she was serious. As soon as I have him framed in court, I'm taking the kids and everything else. The house, the 401k, everything. My stomach lurched. Frame me? Frame me for what? There was a pause. Then Belle continued. Miles already has the evidence we need. Those pictures from the hotel will be perfect. And with my testimony about his supposed drinking problem, no judge will ever give him custody. Miles. The name hit me like a sledgehammer. Miles Clark, her colleague at the downtown marketing firm. The same man she'd been having all those innocent work lunches with for the last 6 months. The same man who'd been to our house for dinner twice, sitting at my table, eating my food, and apparently plotting to destroy my life. The beauty of it is, Belle went on, her voice filled with a sick satisfaction. Otis is so trusting. He actually believes I'm working late all those nights. He has no idea what's coming. I had to bite my knuckles to keep from screaming. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever known. This wasn't just about another man. This was a calculated plot to frame me for something I didn't do, to steal my children from me. And the money? Belle asked. Great. Make sure those offshore accounts are ready. I don't want him to have access to a single dollar when this goes down. Offshore accounts. My wife, the woman I had trusted with my life, my heart, and my children, was systematically planning to rob me blind while setting me up for some kind of criminal charge. The call ended, and I heard Belle's footsteps moving toward the kitchen. I just sat there in the darkness of my office, my entire world spinning out of control. Everything I thought I knew, my life, my marriage, my future, was built on a foundation of lies. My hands trembled as I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a small digital recorder. If Belle wanted to play with evidence, then I'd give her a taste of her own medicine. I rewound the security feed and began to record every damning word she had just spoken. 20 minutes later, I had it all. Her admission of the affair, the offshore accounts, the plot with Miles. The evidence was irrefutable. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. My marriage was over. What it had been for months, I had no idea. But I wasn't going down without a fight. If Belle thought she could destroy me and take my children, she was about to find out that this old telecom manager had a few tricks of his own. The war for my life was about to begin. The days that followed were a living hell. I went through the motions: work, family dinners, helping the kids with homework, all while a storm of rage and grief churned inside me. I needed more than just the audio recording. I needed to understand the full scope of their plan. I started subtly checking our shared devices. That's when I found it: a saved email draft on the family tablet. It was addressed to someone with the initials MC. It had to be Miles Clark. Babe, the draft read, O is getting suspicious about the money. We need to speed up the timeline. Can you get those pictures doctored by next week? And make sure your friend at the DA's office is ready with the domestic violence charges. Once we paint him as an abuser, custody will be a lock. Domestic violence charges. My hands shook as I took a screenshot of the draft. They weren't just planning to rob me. They were going to destroy my reputation, my relationship with my children, and maybe even send me to prison for crimes I never committed. That night, sitting in my home office, I looked at the evidence I'd collected and felt a cold resolve settle in my chest. This wasn't the woman I had married, the woman who used to bring me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings and laugh at my terrible dad jokes. This was a predator living in my house, sleeping in my bed, and planning my ruin. The smart move would have been to get a lawyer immediately. Take my evidence to the police. But Belle had made one critical miscalculation. She thought I was weak, predictable, and easy to manipulate. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. I opened my laptop and started making some calls. 22 years in telecommunications gives you contacts in a lot of interesting places. People who owe you favors. People who know people. People who can make problems disappear. If Belle wanted to play dirty, I was about to show her what filthy really looked like. My old college roommate, Icky Thompson, had been working as an investigative journalist for the Denver Post for the last 15 years. We'd kept in touch over the years, mostly through Christmas cards and the occasional beer when he was in town. I never imagined I'd need his professional skills to save my own life. I called Icky on a Thursday morning from my office, making sure the door was locked and my voice was low. Otis Wells, Icky said when he answered, a smile in his voice. To what do I owe the pleasure? It's been 6 months. It's about my family, Icky, I said, getting straight to the point. I need help. The kind of help that might make a hell of a story for you. There was a pause. Then Icky's voice turned serious. What kind of trouble are you in, Otis? I spent the next 20 minutes laying it all out. The recorded conversation, the offshore accounts, the plan to frame me. Icky listened without interrupting, only making small sounds of disbelief. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. Jesus, Otis, he said, this is bigger than just a cheating spouse story. If what you're telling me is true, we're talking about conspiracy, fraud, maybe even extortion. I can prove every word, I said. I have the recordings, the email drafts, the financial transfers. It's all there. Send me everything, Icky said. And I mean everything. If we're going to expose this, we need to be bulletproof. People like this don't go down easy. That afternoon, I met Icky at a coffee shop downtown, far from anywhere Belle might find us. He went over my evidence with the practiced eye of someone who'd spent years digging up dirt on corrupt politicians and crooked businessmen. This is pure gold, he said finally, tapping his laptop screen. Your wife and her boyfriend made a rookie mistake. They documented everything. It's all here in black and white. What's our next move? I asked. Icky leaned back in his chair, a predatory grin spreading across his face. We give them enough rope to hang themselves. You keep acting normal at home. Don't let on that you know anything. In the meantime, I'm going to start making some calls. See what else I can find out about Miles Clark and anyone else involved in this little scheme. He paused, his expression growing serious. But Otis, you need to understand. Once we pull this trigger, there's no going back. Your marriage is over, and things are going to get ugly, fast. Are you ready for that? I thought about Daniel and Amelia, about the life I thought we were building, about all the lies and betrayal that had brought me to this moment. I'm ready, I said. Let's burn it all to the ground. After 3 weeks of Icky's investigation, I decided it was time to shake the tree and see what fell out. I had been playing the clueless husband for long enough, and frankly, watching Belle lie to my face every day was eating me alive. It was a Sunday evening, and we were sitting at the dinner table like a normal family. Daniel was telling us about his upcoming baseball tryouts, while Amelia was showing off a drawing she'd made of our dog. For a moment, it was almost possible to forget that everything was falling apart. Then, Belle's phone buzzed. I saw her face light up as she read the text. That same secret smile I'd been seeing for months. The one that never included me. Sorry, sweetie, Belle said to Amelia, not even looking up from her phone. What were you saying about your picture? That's when something inside me snapped. Put the phone down, Belle, I said. My voice was calm, but it had an edge that made both kids look up from their plates. Excuse me? She said, finally meeting my eyes. I said, put the phone down. We're having dinner as a family. Belle set her phone aside with an exaggerated sigh. There, happy now? You've been so controlling lately, Otis. It's not an attractive quality. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, while Amelia's eyes darted between us like she was watching a tennis match. Controlling, I repeated, savoring the word. That's an interesting choice. You know what else is interesting? Hotel charges on our credit card for places I've never been. The color drained from Belle's face, but she recovered quickly. I have no idea what you're talking about. The Marriott downtown, 3 weeks ago. $237 for a room you never stayed in. Dad, Daniel said quietly, maybe we shouldn't. No, son, I said, keeping my eyes locked on Belle. I think it's time your mother and I had an honest conversation for a change. Belle stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to your paranoid accusations. Sit down, I said, and there was something in my voice that made her freeze halfway to the door. We're not finished here. You spied on me, she hissed. I was protecting myself, I countered, protecting my children from a woman who is actively plotting to destroy their father. Kids, go to your rooms, Belle snapped. No, I said firmly. They're old enough to know what kind of person their mother really is. That's when Belle lost it completely. All pretense of the loving wife and mother evaporated in an instant. You pathetic little man, she snarled. You think you're so clever with your little security cameras and your paranoid theories. Daniel and Amelia sat frozen in their chairs, staring at their mother as if they had never seen her before. In a way, they hadn't. This was her, the real Belle, the one who had hidden behind false smiles and manufactured tears for months. Mom, Amelia whispered, her voice small and frightened. Shut up, Belle snapped at her own daughter. Just shut up and let the adults talk. That crossed a line I didn't even know existed. I rose slowly to my feet, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. You will never speak to my daughter that way, I said, my voice lethally quiet. Belle laughed. The sound was like shattering glass. Your daughter? She's mine too, at least until the court gives me full custody. On what grounds? You're an unfit parent. Based on what evidence? Based on your drinking problem, your violent tendencies, the fact you've been embezzling money from your company to fund your gambling addiction. My blood turned to ice. She was laying it all out, right there at the dinner table, in front of our children. None of that is true, and you know it, I said, my voice grim. Then explain the hotel receipts in your name, the credit card charges at that casino in Blackhall, the money missing from our joint account. She had been busy. Whatever evidence she and Miles had fabricated was apparently comprehensive. You're sick, I said. You're truly sick if you think I'm going to let you destroy my life and steal my children. Try and stop me, Belle said, standing and grabbing her purse. See how that works out for you when you're sitting in a prison cell. She strode to the door, then paused and turned back to the children. When you're living in some foster home because your father is in jail, remember that he chose this fight, not me. No, Daniel said, his voice cracking. He was 14 years old and watching his family implode. Mom, please, don't go. Belle cut him off. You'll understand when you're older. The front door slammed behind her, and I was left standing in my dining room with two terrified children and the wreckage of a 20-year marriage scattered around me like shrapnel. Amelia began to sob, and Daniel put his arm around her shoulders. Dad, he said, his voice firm despite it all. What's really happening? I sat back down and looked at my children. I really looked at them. They deserved the truth, or at least as much of it as they could handle. Your mother has been lying to all of us for a very long time, I said, choosing my words carefully. She's been planning to leave me and take both of you with her, and she's trying to make me look like a bad person so the courts will let her do it. But you're not a bad person, Amelia said through her tears. No, sweetheart, I'm not, and I'm going to make sure a judge knows that. After Belle stormed out that Sunday night, I knew my time was running out. She had shown her true colors in front of the children, and there was no going back. If she was going to declare war, I needed to make sure I had the ammunition to fight back. Monday morning, I took a personal day and drove straight to our bank. First National had handled our finances for over 15 years, and they knew me well enough to fast track what I needed to do. Mr. Wells, said Janet Morrison, our usual branch manager, what brings you in today? I need to make a few account adjustments, I said, sliding the necessary paperwork across her desk. Emergency financial planning. What I didn't tell Janet was that I had spent all of Sunday night documenting every dollar Belle had stolen or planned to steal. The offshore accounts Rick had helped me uncover, the hotel charges, the cash she'd been siphoning for months. It all added up to a clear pattern of financial fraud. Within 2 hours, I had transferred every cent from our joint accounts into a new account solely in my name. The savings, the checking, the money market account, even the college funds I had been contributing to for years. It was all moved to a place where Belle couldn't touch it. But I didn't stop there. I canceled her credit cards, the gym membership she was using to meet Nelson, and the cell phone plan that had been facilitating her affair. All automatic payments, all direct deposits, all financial lifelines were gone. The final move was the most satisfying. I called the mortgage company and had them remove Belle's name from the account access. The house was in my name alone, purchased before we were married, and now she would have no legal claim or ability to manipulate the payments. As I was driving home that afternoon, my phone began ringing. Belle had likely tried to use her debit card and found it declined. I let it go to voicemail. Then Rick Thompson called with news that made my day even better. Otis, you need to hear this, Rick said, his voice tense with excitement. I've been digging into this Miles Clark's history. The guy has a track record for this kind of thing. 3 other women in the last 5 years, all married, all wealthy, all divorced, under mysterious circumstances. Are you saying he's a professional homewrecker? I'm saying he's a predator who targets married women for financial gain. And get this, in 2 of those cases, the husbands ended up facing criminal charges that were later dropped for lack of evidence. A chill went down my spine. They've done this before, multiple times. But here's the kicker. I found one of the ex-husbands, a guy named Robert Fisher in Phoenix. He's willing to testify about their methods. Turns out they use the same playbook every time. Seduce the wife, fabricate evidence against the husband, and clean them out in the divorce settlement. How much time do we have? Based on what Fisher told me, they usually move within a few days once the husband gets suspicious. Belle probably called Miles the second she walked out of your house Sunday night. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to wait for them to make their move. I was going to force their hand and expose them publicly before they could destroy me. Ricky, how fast can you get a story ready to publish with what we have? 24 hours. But Otis, once this goes live, there's no turning back. Good. I said, because I'm done playing defense. That night, I put Daniel and Amelia to bed, knowing it might be the last normal night we'd have for a while. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. The war was about to go public, and I intended to win. Tuesday morning's Denver Post featured a front page story that rocked our entire community to its core. Ricky had outdone himself with the headline, Local Marketing Executive and Boyfriend Accused in Elaborate Marriage Fraud Scheme. The article laid out everything: the recorded conversations, the offshore accounts, the history of targeting wealthy married men, even quotes from Robert Fisher describing how they had destroyed his life in Phoenix 3 years earlier. But the real bombshell was the audio file embedded in the online version. Readers could actually hear Belle's voice as she plotted to frame me and steal my children. My phone started ringing before 7 a.m., but I was already at work, having arrived early to avoid the media circus that was about to erupt. By 9, the story had been picked up by 3 other newspapers and 2 local television stations. At 10:15, my boss, Mr. Fletcher, called me into his office. "Otis, I've been fielding calls all morning," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Reporters asking about your employment status, whether the company has any comment on the allegations against your wife." My stomach tightened. "I understand if you need me to take some time off while this gets sorted out." Fletcher shook his head. "Actually, I called you in here to let you know that Mountain Peak Telecommunications stands behind you, 100%. We've reviewed your employment history, your security clearances, and your financial activities. There isn't a single red flag in 22 years." Relief washed over me. "Thank you, sir. That means more than you know." "There's something else," Fletcher continued. "We got a call from legal this morning. Apparently, your wife's attorney has been making inquiries about your salary, your benefits, your stock options. They were fishing for information to use against you in divorce proceedings. Were they successful? Of course not. We told them to talk to your lawyer or get lost." By noon, the story had gone viral on social media. The audio recording was shared thousands of times, and the comment section was brutal. People who had known Belle for years were shocked and outraged by the betrayal. But the most gratifying moment came at 2:30 p.m. when my phone rang with a number I recognized. It was Belle's mother, Margaret. "Otis," she said, her voice thick with rage, "what have you done?" "I told the truth, Margaret. That's all. You've destroyed my daughter's reputation over a little marital spat. Your daughter destroyed her own reputation when she decided to frame an innocent man and take his children." There was a long pause. Then Margaret's voice came back, colder than I'd ever heard it. "This isn't over, Otis. You think you're so clever, but Belle has resources you don't even know about. Resources like offshore bank accounts and crooked lawyers? Yeah, I know about them too." The line went dead. At 4 o'clock, Rick called with an update that made my entire week. "3 more papers want to run follow-up stories. Channel 7 News wants an exclusive interview with you for the nightly broadcast. And get this, the Colorado Attorney General's office just announced they're opening a public inquiry into marriage fraud schemes." That evening, as I sat with Daniel and Amelia watching the news coverage of our family's implosion, my son looked at me with something I hadn't seen in his eyes for months: respect. "Dad," he said quietly, "I'm proud of you for fighting back." "Me too," Amelia added, snuggling closer to me on the sofa. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like maybe just maybe, we were going to be okay. The custody hearing took place 6 weeks after the story broke. By then, Belle's world had completely fallen apart. The public exposure had cost her everything. Her job, her friends, even her own family had turned their backs on her after hearing the recordings. I walked into that courtroom with Rick Thompson by my side and a briefcase full of evidence that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. The judge, Catherine Morrison, no relation to our bank manager, had a reputation for being tough but fair. Exactly what I needed. Belle's lawyer, a slick guy in an expensive suit named Davidson, tried to paint me as the vengeful husband who had orchestrated a smear campaign against his innocent wife. But when Judge Morrison listened to the audio recordings of Belle planning to frame me, her expression said it all. "Mrs. Wells," Judge Morrison said, after listening to 20 minutes of damning evidence, "do you have any explanation for these recordings?" Belle stood, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I once loved. But when she opened her mouth, only lies came out. "Your Honor, my husband has been stalking me and recording private conversations without my consent. These recordings have been taken out of context and edited to make me look bad." Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. "You're suggesting this is fabricated?" "I'm saying my husband is a controlling, paranoid man who is trying to steal my children because he can't stand the idea of losing control over me." That's when Rick Thompson stood and handed the judge a thumb drive. "Your Honor, if I may, here are the full, unedited recordings, complete with timestamp data and digital authentication. Also included is the deposition of Mr. Robert Fisher from Phoenix, Arizona, who was a victim of the same scheme involving Mr. Clark 3 years ago." The judge spent 20 minutes reviewing the evidence while the courtroom sat in silence. When she finally looked up, her decision was written on her face. "Mrs. Wells, I have reviewed the evidence presented by both parties. The recordings clearly show premeditated fraud and a conspiracy to commit perjury. Furthermore, your plan to falsely accuse your husband of domestic violence to gain a custodial advantage demonstrates a willingness to use your own children as weapons in this dispute." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I am granting full and sole custody of Daniel and Amelia Wells to their father, Mr. Otis Wells. Last month, Daniel told me he was tired of pretending Belle was sorry for what she did. 'She keeps trying to blame you for everything, Dad,' he said. 'She doesn't get that we were there. We heard what she said to us that night at dinner.' As for me, I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but there's a woman named Patricia who works in accounting at Mountain Peak. She has 2 kids from a previous marriage, and we're taking it slow, building something real instead of rushing into promises that might not mean anything." And Rick Thompson? He won a state journalism award for his series on marriage fraud schemes. The investigation he launched sparked reforms in the way domestic violence allegations are handled in custody cases, and it has likely spared countless innocent people from the ordeal I endured. The very security system that began this whole nightmare is still in place. But now, its purpose has changed. Instead of unearthing ugly truths, it simply keeps us safe. Sometimes, I glance at the feeds and see Daniel at the kitchen table, absorbed in his homework, or Amelia practicing the piano in the living room. In those quiet moments, I am reminded of just how close I came to losing everything. People often ask if I'm bitter about the 20 years I spent with a woman who proved capable of such cruelty. The honest answer is no. Those years gave me two incredible children. They taught me lessons about trust, about strength, and about fighting for what truly matters. Lessons I could never have learned any other way. If there is one thing I want anyone facing a similar situation to understand, it is this. When your gut tells you something is wrong, listen to it. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize the warning signs. And never let anyone convince you that you're being paranoid for protecting yourself and your children. The truth always finds its way to the light. Sometimes you just have to be strong enough to hold on until it does.